Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. It is Tuesday, October the 24th. And once again, it's time for us to pick some winners in the NFL. I have two guests today, and they're pretty good ones. Let me introduce both of you, and let me tell you a little bit about both guys. Back in 1976, this gentleman, he got a tryout with the Philadelphia Eagles. He stood out in training camp as a special teams player, but he lost out to another gentleman named Vince Papale, who was a bartender at his favorite hangout. Now, since that happened, he hasn't talked to Vince Papale at all, stopped going to that bar, packed up his bags, and moved to Las Vegas. Then, in 2012, Vince Papale shows up to an autograph session he was running over at Caesar's Palace and pays him $100 to take a picture with him and get his autograph. His name is Mr. Chip Chirimbes, and I think your career change worked out pretty good, Chip.
Well, I'll tell you, anybody will do anything to get out of Philadelphia. And it's a great story, but there's no merit to it whatsoever.
Anyway, Joe D'Amico's got nothing on me when it comes to telling a false story. And here's another one. My other guest, his best client over the last few years was the head of one of the biggest cartels in Mexico. He made him so much money. I mean, so much money. It topped all the income he was making in every other enterprise he was in. What did the cartel leader do? Bought him a brand new house on the ocean in Mexico. He now receives 24/7 protection from the U.S. government. His name is the real-life wise guy, Mr. Paul Bovi. How are you, my friend?
One lesson you will learn in Mexico: never make any comments about the cartel. So I'm going to take a step back and just say it's a great day in Mexico. It's a great week coming up in the NFL, and we're going to make some money.
Good.
Okay, and I'm in the United States, by the way, so I am null and void from those type of comments, I guess. And anyway, yeah, we got to have a little fun, folks. You know what I mean? But anyway, guys, last week in the NFL, San Francisco, Chipper, goes down again last night, losing to Minnesota. Quite frankly, it was no fluke. I mean, Minnesota played very good last night. Their defense, I thought, really shined. I had the under in that game. A little bit of a sweat, but still in control most of the game. Your thoughts on what we saw last week in the NFL
really happy about that.
Just that game, you know?
I said I was really happy about the Monday night as well as the Sunday night games. We just keep hitting those standalone winners. We had the Vikings last night, of course, and we had the winner on Sunday night. I can't remember who the game was right now, but these weekend games, the Niners, I'm not surprised. They were pretty banged up. And, Minnesota was in a position where if they didn't come up strong here, their season was virtually over. Ross, they still can get in the playoffs because the Giants are so pitiful on the other side. An 8-9 record from them might be good enough to make it in the NFC because, that division with Tampa and Atlanta, they're probably going to be feeding on each other before the season's over. So it was a big win for the Vikings without a doubt. And really, a blow to the New York Giants' chances. Not that they really have any legitimate chances, but I know in New York, they were kind of despondent that the Niners didn't win the game last night.
In any event, we switch over to Mr. Bovi. And I said he's in Mexico, but today is a different story. He's now sitting on a chair in front of center field at Wrigley Field, next to the Ivy. Yeah. Mr. Bovi, your thoughts on anything we saw last week in the NFL that comes to your attention is something you would like to share with all the guests?
Well,
or all the subscribers, I should say.
As far as last night goes and the 49er game, look, as Chip pointed to, they were banged up, and a lot of people discount injuries to the offensive line, and Trent Williams was out, and the protection did suffer, and then you got Debo out as well. And they just, a lot of bettors, casual bettors just push that aside and think it's going to run like a plug-and-play offense and everything's going to be okay. And we saw it just didn't go that way. And Brock Purdy threw a couple, I would call them questionable interceptions. The ball just shouldn't have. They were errant throws. Let's put it that way. And certainly he's taken a step back in the last couple weeks. But the Vikings played well. They've played well at times this year. They could have beaten the Eagles on that nationally televised game, and they got a big win last night without their star player Jefferson, who's been on the shelf, and they got production from other places, notably Madison at the receiver position. So credit to the Vikings for stepping up in prime time, and Kirk Cousins getting it done.
Yeah, and talking about injuries, Minnesota without Jefferson, their star wide receiver, and the other guy stepped up, like you said, Paul, and made a world of difference. And you look at the Vikings inside their numbers, and not a lot of people realize over their last 4 games they're playing pretty damn good defense right now. So I know, you think of Minnesota, you think of high scoring games, you think of them winning 31-28 or losing because their defense let them down when their offense went for over 400 yards, but not the case recently. So just keep that in mind going forward, folks. In any event, we are sponsored by Gamblers World. All 3 of us are on the website over at gamblersworld.net, and it's there, folks. You'll find 10 of the finest handicappers in the country, like I said, including us 3. There also, we guarantee our picks that if you don't make a profit, you don't win on single game or multi-game daily packages or any subscription plan of 30 days or less. You will be credited back the exact amount of your purchase price. And you can use that any which way you like, at any time you wish, on any handicapper you wish. So, again, let's get to the meat and potatoes, the NFL. And I'm going to be covering the Atlanta-Tennessee game, Chipper, Jets, and Giants. And Paul will be looking at the Jags and the Steelers. So let's start with you, Chipper. The Jets and Giants, a battle in New York. And who's better? I was going to say who better to speak on that, but both you guys grew up. And Chip grew up as a New York Giants season ticket holder with his dad. Paul is still a New York Giants season ticket holder and making tons of money on the resale market with the New York Giants season tickets.
Right.
Anyway, Chip, the Jets are -3, 36.5, and lo and behold, the Giants are coming off a win.
How about that? This is not the big rivalry you might have anticipated with 2 New York teams. Like, the Red Sox, Yankees is bigger, and the Mets and Yankees are bigger in this. These teams only meet once every 4 years, though they play every year during the preseason. By the way, Ross, I just want to let you know I was 11-0 the last 2 days, including 7-0 in the NFL. And if you throw in the college football on Saturday, last 3 days gone 16-1. That half point of Auburn marred my entire weekend. I was sick the whole weekend about that game. Yeah. Only teasing. Very happy to come out a winner. And this game this week will not be one of my primary plays, but I like this game. The last time these 2 played, Daniel Jones was quarterbacking. He had an excellent day, 4 touchdown passes, 308 yards, 26 of 40, but they had 13 yards rushing for the day. And Saquon Barkley, who looked like gangbusters last week, had 1 total yard offensively on 13 carries. I think he's going to carry that in his head coming into this game, and I think the Giants are going to look to run the ball a little bit more. They look so much better with Barkley in there as part of their offense. They only had 23 yards rushing the first time they met, and guess who was quarterback in the Jets? Sam Darnold. So I was kind of surprised that I saw that matchup coming up. But this year, I was going to give you the under, Ross, because the quarterback ratings for these 2 teams is terrible. The Giants have 2 touchdown passes on the year and 3 interceptions. The Jets are only under 70% quarterback rating for the year. The Giants are at 76, and they're both completing like 56, 57% of their passes. And, Ross, in today's NFL, that's just not. It just doesn't cut it. I mean, teams got to be over 60, closer to 67%. I mean, guys are at 70%, and those teams aren't even winning. And by the way, he looked really sharp last night. Cousins did for the Vikings. And you can see when you got a quarterback that can put the ball in a quarterback where the receivers can get it, the difference that it makes. I think the Giants have a little edge here because of all the goings on. So much expectations are happening to the Jets. I think the Giants can force Wilson into a few mistakes. And whether Jones plays or Tyrod Taylor plays, I don't think it's really going to matter that much. The Giants are going to be pretty conservative. And this elite Jet defense is going to be exposed, I think, a little bit. Or even Saquon Barkley is just such a difference maker for those Giants. I mean, they actually look like they could beat a playoff team against Washington. Be it Washington, we understand that. I'm going to take the Giants here. I'll take the points, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
All right, so the New York Giants plus the 3, they're the designated home team in this matchup against the New York Jets, both teams' home stadium, but there'll be more Giants fans because they got the season ticket holders there. But there'll be a fair share of Jets fans. You know, Paul, Chip was mentioning how the Giants' offense looks much better with Saquon Barkley. But, you know, you look at, they still only scored 9 and 14 points the last 2 weeks. Now, having said that, I know what Chip's saying. They look a little more threatening on offense than they did prior to the weeks that Barkley was out. Having said that, their defense, you know, gave up 7 against Washington last week, and they held Buffalo to 14 points 2 weeks ago. So what say you about this matchup?
All right. So first of all, yeah, Barkley has made a difference, but he also caused the Giants to leave a few points off the board on Sunday, much to my chagrin. I had the Giants, and I had them as a selection. I liked them, but Barkley fumbled the ball down at the 8-yard line. Or maybe it was the 10. I think it was the third quarter, early fourth quarter, and I had the team total over 17. The field goal would have given me that, so I gave back a little on the side. I did have the Giants, as I mentioned, and it's been a tale of two offenses because they've been much better with Tyrod Taylor in there. I'm a Daniel Jones fan, but there is no question that in the last 2 weeks, the Giants have been a much improved offense. They've had 10 drives exceeding 30 yards over the last 2 weeks, and you didn't see that from the Giants in the weeks prior. I'll tell you how far I go back with the Giants and the Jets. And I remember the first time these two played, it was the 70s. It went to overtime. And Joe Namath, I believe it went to overtime. It was a late score. Joe Namath ran a bootleg to win the game. And as he was running the bootleg and he was wide open, he put his hands up like, don't touch me. And that was the first time the Giants and the Jets played, and the Jets got the better of it. But Chip makes a lot of good points here. I don't really have a decision on this game. I think it's going to be close. I'll be rooting for Big Blue, and we'll see how it lands.
Yeah, and that run by Namath took 10 minutes off real-time clock.
Do you remember the run?
I do. Yeah. I remember the hand gesture, and I also remember, you know, he wasn't the mobilest. He was mobile at Alabama until he hurt his knee. But he was never mobile on the NFL level. So must have been one hell of a fake. I don't remember the exact play, but it must have been one hell of a fake.
Who would expect him to bootleg? Who would expect Joe Namath? I think that was the only time that year that he actually ran the football. So anyway, Chip, go ahead.
I was going to say at the end of his career, commenting on Namath, I remember a game where they had so much respect for him, and he was so hobbled and so crippled that defensive linemen were actually pulling up before they give him a full brace of hitting him. Nowadays, they're pulling up because of the rules, but those rule changes weren't in effect then, and they could have annihilated him. And I think they showed a lot of respect for him at the end because he was really hurt and he couldn't move. Hurt his leg in Alabama, making a tackle, right, where he got his foot tangled in the yard marker and after an interception, and that's why he always had that weak knee.
Yeah, exactly. But he was definitely entertaining. There's no two ways about it. And if you're a football fan and you were young in those days like I was, one of your fondest memories, I guess you could say, it was a fond memory for me. Let me put it this way. If you're a Baltimore Colts fan, it was not a fond memory. But the Jets beating the mighty Colts in the 1969 or 1970. It was at the end of the 69 season.
Yeah.
I think the game was played actually in 1970, beating the Baltimore Colts and Earl Morrall at quarterback. And remember those days, you know, they dominated that game. They won 16-7. It was 16-0. And Matt Snell with a big game, and Emerson Boozer with a big game, and Don Maynard with a big game. And then the Colts had another quarterback that came in relief to get their only touchdown. His name was Johnny Unitas. He was pretty good. So
I just want to comment that there are rumors around, and I place some credibility that that game may have been orchestrated because they needed the merger, and I'm going to stop there. But everything that has been thrown out there makes a lot of sense if you read into it.
The thing I remember most about that game was Namath's ability on third down to audibilize and give Matt Snell the ball, and he just seemed to churn the ball and just had ball possessions. 5 interceptions and 3 of them in the end zone by Johnny Sample didn't hurt either. And missed field goal right off the bat by the Colts. They drove the ball 70 yards, and then they turned the ball over. It was the Jets' day, and Namath was so confident and cocky. I mean, he shows up in a white fur coat with sunglasses, and everyone, where's this guy coming from? They just couldn't believe it because he was so brash.
Well, I hope he didn't show up in a white fur coat at the Super Bowl because it was in Miami.
No, but
yeah,
he had the sunglasses anyway. It didn't bother him.
Yeah, he did. If you recall, though, Chip, sitting on a lounge chair on the beach in Miami is when he guaranteed they would win the game.
Well, they challenged him. They said, "Do you think you have a chance?" He says, "We're going to beat him. I guarantee it." And that was great.
Yeah. Now that all the young people in the audience, which there's a lot of them out there, are saying, "Okay, you old bastards, let's move on with the show." We will. And Paul's going to talk about the Jags and Steelers matchup. Right now, the Jags a 2.5-point favorite, a total 42. The Jags all of a sudden look like the team that a lot of people thought they would be early on. And the Steelers coming off a big win last week at the Rams. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, Pittsburgh's got a winning record, Paul.
I don't know if people realize it, but the Steelers could actually have the worst offense in the NFL. The fact that they won that game on Sunday was nothing short of a miracle. Early fourth quarter, the Rams had a 334 to 110 yardage edge. It was at that point a 17-10 Ram game. The Steelers were in it in large part because of the interception by TJ Watt, which resulted in a touchdown 1 or 2 plays later. But basically, the Rams killed themselves with penalties and drops. By the way, Cooper Kupp had 2 early ones in the first 5 minutes of the game. Penalties, drops, you name it, the Rams were doing it to sabotage their chances. As far as the Steelers go, the Steelers this year have exceeded 300 yards on 2 occasions. Last week against the Rams, 316. And then you go back to that Raider game, which they prevailed by a score of, I believe, 23-18, driven by turnovers. And they had a 72-yard completion to Austin, I believe, and another 32-yarder to Johnson. So they just don't move the ball. And then you look at their defense. Their defense is TJ Watt. They can get some pressure on the quarterback with him. But if you look on Sunday, Royce Freeman, a retread, who was basically discarded after the 2019 season by the Broncos, hung around the NFL the last 4 years, run the ball with 3 teams 132 times for 456. The Rams are without a running back because Williams goes out with an injury. So they bring in Henderson, who they let go last year, and they bring in Royce Freeman, who proceeds to run the ball 12 times for 60 plus and kept gash in the middle of the Steelers defense. Jacksonville is just a far superior team. The Steelers at 4-2 are a complete fraud. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 6 to 7 points better on a neutral field. People are going to find out the Steelers with Kenny Pickett quarterbacking are just not going to get it done here. And I like, as you can tell, I like the Jaguars. I'm going to start a new streak because I did lose my free play last week. The Baltimore Ravens kicked a late field goal to push the game over the 42. They ended up scoring 44, 6-1 on these free plays, and we'll get a new winning streak started right here, right now.
There you go. He likes the Jags. And if you look, I think there's some 2s out there. Okay. We said 2.5, but you may be able to find a 2 and follow Paul's advice, because he, first losing pick he's had in 7 weeks, and lo and behold, everybody let us know that we haven't done well with our free picks over the last 2 weeks. But again, folks, if you're going to listen to how we're doing with our pay selections at the end of the show, and you might want to reach in your pocket once in a while and make some money instead of complaining about free picks. And by the way, it's not like we haven't been winning all year. We've had a nice run with free picks for over 2 months until we hit a little bit of a roadblock the last 2 weeks. It happens to the best of us, and we certainly qualify in that regard. All right, I'm going to look at Atlanta and Tennessee. Atlanta is a 2.5-point favorite. The total in this game is 36.5. The Falcons are coming off a rare road win, a 16-13 win at Tampa Bay last week. They could have put up more points than 16. They had 403 yards of total offense in that game, but they turned the ball over 4 times, and that's nothing new for Atlanta. As a matter of fact, it's really tough to win on a consistent basis, even though Atlanta's got a winning record right now. But how much better could they be if, look, over the last 4 games, they're a -9 in the turnover department. Last week's win at Tampa Bay, like I said, is a rare road win. It's because it snapped a 7-game road losing streak. And since 2021, Atlanta's just 1-5 straight up in ATS on the road, off a road win, and they were outscored in those 6 games by an average of 13 points per game. Now, Tennessee's 2-4. However, they are 2-0 straight up in ATS at home. And they beat some decent teams in the LA Chargers and Cincinnati Bengals, who, by all accounts, are underachieving this year, but they're still formidable opponents. Their previous game was in England 2 weeks ago, and they lose 24-16 to the Baltimore Ravens. Ryan Tannehill, their starting quarterback, goes down late in the game with an injury. He's replaced by Malik Willis, who comes in and goes 4 for 5 for 74 yards. However, he was also sacked 4 times, and that speaks to what we've mentioned on several times in this program. Tennessee's offensive line is a huge deficiency. Here's the thing. Tennessee coming off a bye week with Mike Vrabel during regular season action. They are 5-0 straight up in ATS in this situation with Vrabel in charge, and they win by 18.2 points per game. So whatever it is, Mike Vrabel is an excellent coach. We all know that. And his teams tend to overachieve and don't count his teams out if they get off to a bad start, even though I don't think this is going to be one of those cases, because I'm not crazy about Tennessee. But in this matchup, right, I think it suits them well. And by the way, Atlanta, I talked about their -9 turnover differential over the last 4 games. They've also only forced 6 turnovers in 7 games. Hard to win on a consistent basis like that. And Mike Vrabel, since he's been the head coach at Tennessee, he's 6-0 straight up in ATS against opponents that turn the ball over 1 or fewer times per game. And Atlanta qualifies, obviously, in that situation. And the Titans won those 6 games by 13.8 points. Ryan Tannehill, Paul, now, I don't think anybody's too crazy about him. You got that big contract, and he's never performed up to that contract. And this year, if you look at his numbers, 2 touchdowns versus 6 interceptions. In his 6 starts, he's averaging only 188 yards passing per game. So I don't know if it's a huge downgrade to go to Malik Willis at this point. Now, I know Willis, when he was given the opportunity in the regular season, either last year or the year before, really was terrible, honestly. But he looked great in the preseason, and he showed well in the short time he played against Baltimore last week. But your take?
My take is Malik Willis is not an NFL quarterback. He will not be in this league. He's not long for this league. He was awful last year. He wasn't very good at Liberty. I mean, I remember I cashed a draft pick wager on this guy. They said first 12, picks, and he didn't go till I think the 3rd round or something. He was throwing interceptions at Liberty, okay, taking on the likes of Army and other teams within the conference. And he just hasn't shown anything better here. And as you mentioned, he took all those sacks last week, unnecessary sacks. Now, I understand Tannehill has not performed well, but as you pointed out, their offensive line has been horrible, and they've had an injury there too. So it's not Tannehill's fault. Tannehill had a great run for 4 years, and he led him to the playoffs. He pulled off a major upset. So I'm not going to light Tannehill up at this point in favor of Malik Willis. So they better stick with Ryan Tannehill and just make the best of it and hope that their defense can shine against an Atlanta team, which has been very erratic. As you pointed out, they had a decent game against Tampa Bay, turned the ball over at the end of the first half down at the 10-yard line, could have led to points, and they could have taken a 17-10 lead, but they ended up prevailing. So I side with you on Tennessee here.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to be, how could I put this? Don't misunderstand me. I do not think Malik Willis should be starting over Ryan Tannehill. My thing is Ryan Tannehill is listed as questionable right now. If you look at the line move, where Atlanta goes from a 1-point opening dog to a 2.5-point favorite, in my mind, that's not a sharp move. It's more in tune with the fact that they think Tannehill may not play. So let me make sure I'm very clear with that, because Paul makes an excellent point when it comes to Malik Willis. I've said it all along. I don't know what they saw in that kid to draft him, take him with a number one draft choice. You can't fault them for that. It's just an error on their management's part. But any take on this one, Chip? This is a tricky one.
Yeah, I like the situation that Tennessee is in, regardless of who's quarterbacking.
Yeah,
I think they're in a great spot here. I like them. Having had Atlanta last week and feeling very fortunate that I came away with the victory, I'm very happy about it. I don't have any problems with the Titans. I like to comment on the game that Paul was working on, the Steeler game. This team's 4-2. I was fortunate enough to have them, and I wrote it up that this is black magic. They're doing something behind the curtain. It's like, don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. This team's been outgained in every game they've played this year. Every game they've been outgained by their opponents, and they're 4-2. Four turnovers, 3 turnovers, 3 turnovers, and then the game they had against the Rams this past weekend. Their defense is doing it all.
There you go. And I agree. Paul mentioned their defense is a major contributor to their, if you want to call it success. I guess when you measure their win-loss record, it's successful. But I go back to the Cleveland game early in the season where they won 26-22. They scored 2 touchdowns on defense. So, they're living right now, guys. That's all I could say. All right.
By the way, what I was going to say is, they couldn't guard Nakua. Yeah. They play this soft zone. The guy kept running down the middle. At some point, you got to say to yourself, all right, we're going to shut this guy down. He had 145 yards of receiving. I'm not arguing, because I have Nakua to get Offensive Rookie of the Year, which would, pay.
Yeah, I was going to say Nakua's made a lot of defenses look bad thus far.
He definitely has, and he tapered off when Kupp came back into the lineup. But at some point, first of all, Patrick Peterson, he's okay, but he's 33 years old, and I think he's taken a step back. Yeah. They have Joey Porter. He's not bad, but in the secondary. But this team is not good. That's all.
Yeah. And I think they could, in especially so if they fall behind in a game. If they have to go one-dimensional and be pass happy to try to catch up because they're down more than one score, it's just going to snowball on them. We've seen that happen before with them. I'm not a Kenny Pickett guy either. Talking about Malik Willis, I'm not going to do a direct comparison other than to say that I think a lot was made of him being a number one draft choice, more so because he came from the University of Pittsburgh and now he's going to the Steelers. Other than that, he's not shown me that he's a franchise type of quarterback. Now, a lot of things could change, but I don't know. I'm just not seeing it, guys. Anyway, let's review our selections here. I like the Tennessee Titans plus the 2.5 against Atlanta. Chip Chirimbes likes the New York Giants plus the 3 over the New York Jets. And Paul Bovi likes the Jacksonville Jaguars -2 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, let's get to the part of the show where we tell people why they should spend some money on us and stop complaining about free picks when we get on a bad run with free picks, and why we can make you a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money if you invest some money in its long term, or even on a weekend, or even on a particular day if you just like to dabble once in a while. And Paul, I'll start with you.
All right, as I've mentioned before, I wager on all these games. I have a 5-dime play up right now, which means I have 5 dimes on the game. I actually have 8. And I posted a 5-dime ticket. I have a lot of faith in this play. It's up there now. I'll be adding more. I chopped in the NFL this last week. I went 2-2. Okay, not a great week, but there was some disappointments in there. I was disappointed with the Chargers, who played inspired football in the first half and just fell flat on their face in the second half. But we're going to come back strong this week. College, I also split out. I had Kent over Buffalo, which turned out not to be the right side, but I also had Ball State over Central Michigan with 6 points, and they were an outright winner. And I'll come back. Probably there's not much MAC action this week, and I do like delving into the MAC, but there are other games I like, and they'll be up there this week, and we're going to win.
There you go. Paul Bovi, I keep saying, is a real life wise guy. And while you're in Chicago there, Paul, make sure you go to Harry Carey's Steakhouse, one of the best restaurants in the country. Anyway, Mr. Chirimbes.
Yes, sir.
The former tryout cut from the Philadelphia Eagles. Boy, oh boy.
Never happened.
I don't know where I came up with that one, but I thought I'd share it with the audience. Anyway, Chipper, tell the folks. I know, look, 16-1 the last 3 days.
Yeah.
You know how hard that is to do, folks?
That's
Ross, you started the season 12-0 one week. I was trying to challenge that. If it wasn't for that half point with the Auburn game, I would have got there. But the thing I'm proudest about, not so much that the game's won, is that I had the discipline to wait until this late in the season to post my first game of the year, which was opposite. When I was here last week giving a free play, I couldn't give you the side I wanted because that was the game I was using as my game of the year. So I gave a total that went down, but the game of the year was a winner, and we're happy about that. 7-0 in the NFL this weekend. 6-1 altogether in college. The baseball's been right there, like you said, Ross. And I have more big games in store. Ohio State on Saturday, that they wore down Penn State as we predicted, and that was our big mega buck winner. And then, of course, Sunday we swept the board. The big games are really starting to show up, Ross. So you log on, follow the buy links. You get at least a triple play, if not a Fab 5 Saturday, Sunday, definitely 5 NFL selections. So we're really feeling good about what's happening because we took our time this year when we were choppy to just pass until we come up with the big game winners. And I'm really happy about it right now.
Yeah, Chip, you were treading water for a while, but it shows it shows all of us been through this, right? Where you're treading water or you get off to a bad start. It's just a matter of time, and when you come out of it, look what happened. 16-1.
Sometimes, we're so depressed over the way we lost that. I mentioned this, the Texas Tech game to Oregon, and the way we lost the Clemson game, setting up for like virtually an extra point. And those were the top games I released, and I really rely on them. That's where I hang my hat. And when they went down, I had trouble getting my head off the pillow. I was kind of depressed about that.
Oh yeah, and like we were talking off air, it's when you're going good, those types of games go your way. And we tend to forget about the ones we win like that. But boy, when you're going,
I don't think I've ever won one like that.
Now you're starting to sound like Doug Upstone, who breaks out with his book and says he's 140 games below 500 when games go overtime in the NHL. Anyway, it's all a conspiracy. Just ask Paul. The 1969 Super Bowl between the Baltimore Colts and the New York Jets was a
sure that wasn't the Mets and Orioles?
Who better to know than a guy from Mexico to know? Never mind.
Read that story. I want you to read that story.
I will.
There was a lot of money behind that result, and that result needed to be an AFL win, and that's exactly what happened.
They got it.
And what was the point spread in that game?
17.5.
18. Oh, okay. I had
It was up
18.
there.
You know, I just recall it as 18, and I got some kid to give me Baltimore even, and I thought I was taking his money. Well, I had to come in and pay the guy a quarter. You know, I mean, and it still kills me to this day. I could have middled out and taken all my risk off the table.
That's funny, man. That's funny. Man, you know, we all learn our lessons. We all have stories like that when we were younger, and think about how stupid we were when it comes to sports betting. But that's one of the better stories I heard. Not to say that you're stupid by any stretch of your imagination, Paul, but we all have growing pains.
No, the other kid was stupid. I mean, I got the best of them. I got Baltimore even. I mean, I went home and I knew what the spread was. He probably didn't know what the spread was. You know, I grew up in New York. It was a Jet fan.
There you go.
10-year-old kid.
All right. So myself, won again in the NFL last night, which is coming on real strong in the NFL now. Since week 2, I was 2-5 in week 1. Since that time, I've gone 20-11, 6-2 the last 2 weeks in the NFL. College football, you know, I got off to that torrid start and tailed off a bit the last 2 weeks, going 6-9, but still 27-14 since September 14th in college football. That shows you what kind of start I got off to. And then going back to December 2nd of last year, 48-28 with my college football picks over that course of time. And that's good for 68%. Anyway, NFL and college football combined 46-25, 65% since the 14th of September. And what am I missing? Major League Baseball. Another winner last night is I had the over in the Texas and Houston game. And now on an 8-2 run in the Major League Baseball playoffs and hitting around 62% since August the 4th with my Major League Baseball selections, folks. And I do not give out big favorites. So your return on investment, when I'm hitting that percentage, you're making a lot of money. And that goes for these 3 guys too. Nobody gives out big money line favorites on this in this panel anyway. So a lot of good things going on. All sports, by the way, folks. Just to show you how hot I've been since August the 4th, all sports 115-74, which is 61%. And since September the 12th, 69-37. 65%. So things are going well. And, even with all that winning, I'm still transparent. Went 6-9 the last 2 weeks in college football. I'm going to bounce back this week, though. That's for sure. And Chip Chirimbes on a 16-1 run. And Paul Bovi, the real life wise guy on our channel, folks, he's betting 2 to 5 dimes a game. You can't pay $35 for one of his picks on a Saturday or Sunday, or even during the week. Or how about investing into both of these gentlemen and myself as well on our 30-day package, a mere $399. And the only way that you're going to reap the rewards from guys who've been doing it successfully for as long as we have is to invest long-term. Now, I know some of you just like to dabble in once in a while, and those single game and multi-game daily packages are fine too. But the best value you're going to get is to invest 7-day, 30-day, even a 3-day package. Buy it on a Friday. Get all the picks Friday through Sunday, or better yet, Saturday through Monday. You're going to get all college football, the NFL, and the Monday night game. But in any event, gentlemen, always a pleasure. And thank you for bearing and grinning my little bit of delusional stories that I told about you early on. And Paul, just make sure you don't bang your head on the wall when you turn around, because that ivy wall over at Wrigley Field is unforgiving. Until the next one.
I'm on my way to the Cubby Bear right now.
There you go. And by the way, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, don't know what you're waiting for. Best sports betting podcasts on the internet today. 6 shows a week, including these gentlemen every Tuesday afternoon. We'll see if we could increase that workload down the road. But until right now, just 1 day a week with these guys. Live show every Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern time, where you could chime in with your comments and questions. Just hit that subscribe button. It's right underneath your video box if you're watching on your smart TV or on your mobile device. And if you're on your PC, you'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your box. Just click on that. That will get you subscribed. It's absolutely free. And then I'm going to ask you to take one step further, folks. Just a couple extra seconds. Go into your YouTube settings and click on that alert notification bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you will be notified immediately upon us publishing any of our videos on this channel. And Chip, there's a like button underneath. Tell the folks what they should do with that like button.
You should click on it, shouldn't you? I mean, my goodness, look what we're doing for you.
Yeah, right. And Paul, you agree with that, right?
Yeah, click on it.
Yeah.
Whatever Chip says is good with me.
Yeah, it's look, we're
16-1, man.
Here's the thing. We're older gentlemen, right? There's no two ways about that. Pretty good looking older gentlemen, by the way, folks, for all of you that like to kid us about that. But in any event, it doesn't take much to get us happy. You click on that like button. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort we put in to making this podcast a quality one and to making you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. And it's like giving a bartender a tip, just like Chip. He was giving the bartender in Philly a tip, and it cost him a job on the Philadelphia Eagles. Anyway, until the next time, for Chip Chirimbes and Paul Bovi and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.